Hello and welcome back to the study. The little, what do you call this room? What would you call this, Jeff?
Study.
A study. Okay, yeah. Great. I'm glad.
Maybe an office. I don't know.
An office, a gentleman's room, a smoking room. I don't know. We're going to call it the study. I'm joined here with Dr. Candice Coleman. She is an orthodontist from Clarksville, Tennessee. We went to dental school orthodontics together. I said that earlier. And then Dr. Jeff Kozlowski. We've never actually been in the same room together. That's not true. But he's from Connecticut. That little bitty state way up there, beautiful state. Candice was an associate. She's now a partner. Jeff had an associate who's becoming a partner. So I think they're the perfect duo to discuss something I've never really heard discussed that much at orthodontic meetings. Maybe I've heard it before, but it's going to be the best associate, become the best partner. And so we're going to talk about the ins and outs of being an associate and being a partner or a senior doc. So I'm excited about this one. Candice, if you don't mind, would you walk me through why you decided and how you decided to be an associate?
So it started in residency, and I just tried to figure out what I saw for the next 5 to 10 years. So I knew I didn't want to start a practice. I knew I didn't want to buy a practice and have the doctor leave immediately. Mm-hmm. My husband was starting his own practice. One was enough for our family. So I knew that I wanted to join something. And I also knew that I wanted to join a practice that wasn't huge, that had a lot of locations that would require me to travel. So those were kind of the bullet points that I knew. And then I spent about a year traveling all over and visiting offices and meeting doctors. And that's when I realized that joining a practice that had one or two other doctors was kind of the priority for me, with the track to partnership eventually.
Yeah, sure. Like, you're from what, Washington State? Yeah, so Washington State, all the way. I think you had a connection through a doctor that you had mentored you with UT, right?
Yep.
Okay, so that got you to Tennessee, and then I guess Burton kind of kept you here or something.
More or less. And the great state of Tennessee.
Oh, Tennessee's great.
Yeah.
I think legitimately, right? It's not so bad.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It's amazing.
It's no Connecticut, but it's okay. So I think that's great. A lot of people, I think, jump into an associateship. So you spent maybe the last year of residency kind of seeking all this out.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I wasn't really tied to a specific location, which, some people are tied based on family and that sort of thing. So we literally looked all over the country and really explored every option, and then landed in Clarksville, Tennessee.
Well, it seems like it's going well for you.
Yeah, so far.
Let's talk mindset, Jeff, if you will. How important is that when you're, I think it's important, like I'll answer my own question. Mindset's extremely important, right?
All right, the interview's done.
Yeah, it's over. Next question. No, in what ways maybe is it important to the associate and to the senior doctor or the partner?
Well, I think, Kyle, it's equally important to both. So for me, as someone who's been practicing 22 years now and still really feeling like a learner, like I learn every day. That's why I love meetings like this. We learn something new at every meeting. It's problematic for me when someone comes out of residency and feels like they're at the peak of Mount Orthodontics. You all you have is a ticket to ride the train to the peak of Mount Orthodontics. And so there's so much to learn aside from clinical orthodontics, right? Which you learned how you did it in your residency, which is practical in basis, but maybe not practical to all the variety of cases. And you've treated 50, 60, 70 cases. So this notion that all you need to know to be an orthodontist you learned upon graduation. You've learned a portion of what it means to be a clinical orthodontist, which what I love the content of this evening of the meeting is what it means to be a great orthodontist. And the first question that Feldman asked was, are we talking clinical? And your response was perfect, which was, we're talking everything. So it's balance, it's clinical, it's managing a practice, it's being a good person, it's working with your team, being caring and compassionate for them, about building your community, about taking care of your patients, about having a good heart. Oh, by the way, and it's about, a mesiobuccal cusp of something else on occasion. And so that ticket to the game gives the resident an opportunity to join a practice and have some kind of mentorship. Now, the challenge therein lies when a senior orthodontist also has the mindset of I know everything and you don't know anything. Mm-hmm. And so we were talking about it, and I think for Mike in our office, it's really important for me as a senior doc to listen and to allow Mike to make decisions, or at least propose a decision to me, an idea of something he would want. And if it's something that's really going to be catastrophic, because I had already made that mistake, maybe we'll have some coaching on that. But that aside, I think there's some value in allowing associates as they're developing to make some decisions, have some failures, have some wins, but do it together.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
I think that balance is important.
Yeah, it was interesting. We were talking because we have different perspectives, right? Because he's been the senior doctor and I'm the associate. And you know, the ticket to orthodontics or whatever you said, when you walk out of residency, you feel like I'm here, I'm ready to work, I've got it. But it's really important to realize that as an associate, you're walking into systems that are already in place, staff that is already trained, and those are luxuries that you don't have, as you know, when you're starting up your own practice and learning how to call insurance, you know. And so you do get to focus more on your clinical stuff because all the other stuff is running. But the senior doctor or whoever owns that practice went through all of that to get to a point where the practice needed an associate. So I think having that underlying respect of what it took to get the practice to where it is and the fact that you're walking into a well-oiled machine, hopefully at that point, is important. And then, you know, his perspective of the senior doctor, I was fortunate to join a practice where I was able to present ideas that were new and changes to systems and had a senior doctor that listened to those. And I learned along the way what worked and what didn't. And so having that freedom to kind of improve systems that are already there, I think is important from both perspectives.
Sure. Yeah. Well, you actually happen to have a really cool partner with Sean.
Yeah.
He's a cool guy, laid back. I think, you know, a lot of these issues are, you probably get difficult personalities that end up together. And let's be honest, a lot of orthodontists have difficult personalities. You know, we have God complexes and other things. And so if you've never been told you're wrong your whole life, it can be difficult, you know. So fortunately or unfortunately, I've been on my own always. And so Anna and I, in some sense, have been sort of partners, you know, like the two orthodontists in a way. But that's difficult too. But we're not talking about that right now. So I guess there's a lot of people I know. We had a lot of residents who signed up. There's a lot of people who are in corporate positions that are trying to learn, you know, maybe they're planning to associate, you know, ship or whatever. I guess give some pro tips, give some things that you thought in going through this process as an associate that you want to share with people, but also maybe some missteps along the way.
So a few small things just in the beginning. You know, you get your contract once you've made the decision to join the practice. I think you can get a lawyer and spend a lot of time and energy on commas and words. Ultimately, most contracts are going to be fine, so don't spend a lot of time and energy trying to renegotiate things or let things go sour over the wording of something in your contract. I could have just shown mine to a few instructors at school and probably been okay.
Yeah.
When you get into the practice, I think treating the first few months as a mini residency and just soaking up as much in the clinic, particularly if you're, like we were talking, if you are treating the same patients, if you're sharing patients and working with the senior doctor, getting your language down so you're consistent with how you talk to staff, talk to patients is really important. As far as your expectations, you know, you're not going to learn it all at one time. So focusing on getting your clinical, you know, you go from seeing 6 patients a day to 100 patients a day, and that's like drinking water from a fire hydrant. You know, it's a lot to go through. So picking something, you know, the clinic to really fine tune and then start learning the other systems of the office so you can understand kind of the big picture of everything. But trying to do it all at once can be fairly overwhelming. Yeah. I think another thing is know that, especially if you're joining an established practice, there may be patients that don't want to see the new doctor, and that's okay. And as you're there longer, that tends to go away. For me, it hurt my feelings a little bit, you know, and maybe being a female, I'm more sensitive to that. But I think that's a fairly common thing, especially if you've had a doctor that's been around for a while. But as you establish yourself in that practice, that usually irons
There'll come a day
out.
where the senior doc happened to me the other day, comes over and the patient's like, "Who are you?"
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm like, "I'm Dr. Jeff." They're like, "Dr. Jeff who?" I'm like, "Kozlowski." They're like, "Oh, you're the man." I'm like, "Oh yeah." So it's all good. It's all good. Right. I think to piggyback along with that, you know, as the associate comes in, and there's a lot of different ways associateships can happen. It can be corporate. Now we happen to have actually a very similar one where you associated in the practice that you're now practicing and partner in and have a good relationship, and Mike with my practice as well. So very similar, like we're hitting it off as associate and partner. But I think consistency is something super important. You hit on the co-treatment of patients. You know, some associates come out and they join a practice that has a need to fill, say, in another location. So the doctors never work together. And it's really, I guess maybe I'm less equipped to comment on that scenario, but that's kind of then the associates navigating their way with the existing team who's not really their team and the patients who's not really their patients. So there can be some challenges there. Mike and I in the practice, we spend a couple of days a week together seeing patients. So the consistency is really important from every new patient that comes in when we're there together. Whoever's going to see the patient, usually it's me, but at least talking about the treatment plan. How would you treat this? How long would you estimate? Why would you estimate that? Why would you choose this appliance over that appliance? Even down to the point where when we're doing things clinically, our team is instructed to let us know if there's anything that we do differently. I mean, even down to how we want a bracket passed to us, just so we know. It doesn't mean they have to be done absolutely consistently, but we have found things that we drifted slightly apart in consistency without knowing it when we're not always together. And the team is able to let us know, hey, you're asking for this all the time, you're asking for that all the time. Get together and figure it out, and let's come up with a solution. And so instead of it being Jeff's way or Mike's way, it can be we do this in this scenario and we do that in that scenario. And that helps to have consistency, and it really keeps the team on board with multiple doctors working together, co-treating patients.
Sure.
Little advice for when you do have somebody in the office.
Well, if the day ever comes. I think any relationship that's true of, and relationships oftentimes drift apart when there's not time together. And so I can only imagine trying to be an associate with a partner that you never see. It would be very, very difficult. So, Jeff, I guess from the perspective of the senior doctor, what are some things that you think that associates commonly miss? And then I'm going to ask you the opposite. But first, what do associates commonly miss?
Well, I think we hit on it a little bit. I think associates commonly miss the fact that doing the orthodontics isn't even half of the practice.
Yeah.
You're taking care of patients. So it's easier to say be in a scenario, and Mike's great with this, like he's doing more patient hours than I am now. But he realizes the hours that go into interviewing people and hiring people and you name all the other stuff. Okay, we can spend a whole other day on that. But like the treatment of teeth might not even be half of the entire practice.
Right.
It's the team training and everything else. So when the vision is that straightening teeth makes me know how to run a business, that's a disconnect. And so that would be my advice. And then the other side, if you're going to ask me the converse of that, which is what should the senior doc know about the associate, and that is maybe think back and remember, you were full of vim and vinegar. You wanted to work 5 days a week, and every tooth had to be perfect, and you haven't had the experience to have had the bumps and bruises that we've all had. I mean, it's why people who have been married longer are happier, because they've been through the challenges. As you raise kids, it's like any journey in life, right? As you go through that journey, you have some failings, some hurt a lot, and some you succeed with, and then you get stronger and wiser. But you don't be the senior doc that does the walk bare feet uphill both ways in the snow to school kind of thing, because whether it's times have changed or whatever, just be sensitive to the fact that they're intelligent, they're orthodontists, for God's sakes, right? They're intelligent people who have dreams and desires. And how do you guys work together? How do you as a senior doc support that young orthodontist in the development of their hopes and dreams, hopefully together?
Yeah.
That would be my advice.
For sure. Great. All right, let's talk clinical a little bit. Again, I've only ever treated every case myself, so I don't really understand how this works. I've taken on transfers, and sometimes I'm like, what in the world is going on, right? And I'm sure I've sent transfers, and they're like, what in the world is going on, But how do you do this together? I think this is like maybe the thing that would stress me out the most is how do you do that day to day when you share patients? How does that work clinically?
Well, I think doing it where you spend time actually working together, physically in the same office for however long that may be. For us, it was a while. To where we were using the same wire sequences. We were treatment planning all of our cases together on the big screen, talking out treatment plans, and when we didn't agree, we both understood why. That time together is invaluable, because if you're seeing a patient without the other doctor there and you don't have his brain to pick on why he's doing whatever, I think it's a longer learning curve. So the time spent, and it also, getting your staff all on the same page, like he was saying, if you have that consistency, then over time your cases, you may not recognize the patient, but the case is going to look very familiar to you. We use the bullous dilute for a palatal and back to canine. That's a standard thing that we do every time. So things like that, where the time spent on the front end will make it much more successful in the long run, you know, when you're seeing patients that maybe aren't as familiar to you because the other doctor has seen them more.
Yeah. So you're a big systems guy. That's one of the things people know you for. Like, I mean, have you written out all the systems and it's like, hey,
no, that's honestly one of my failings is that I'm like a fireside chat kind of systems guy.
Yeah.
Like it becomes oral history for how we do things rather than a written, you know, a written document about how it goes. One of the things, I was an associate once. I worked in a group practice for 9 years and retired from that group practice before opening my own, where we co-treated patients, and there were a number of challenges with it. And we had 4 really good orthodontists who did collectively not as good work as one average orthodontist because of the inconsistencies. And so one great orthodontist who's honest, you know, the cases go like this, right? Because you have different decision making. So having had that as an experience, one thing that we do significantly differently is we photograph every patient at every visit. And so there's no judgment of whether it was 3 millimeters of overjet or 4 millimeters of overjet and whether the elastics are actually working or not actually working. You got photographic evidence from the last visit of where it was. So Mike can step in on a patient that I've seen or me for a patient that he's seen and be confident that elastics are or are not getting us where we need to go. Yeah. So that's another thing that we have going for us. But I would agree the consistency, you actually need to spend more time together than you think talking about your differences. So you know where your partner would make a decision. Even if you might make another one, it's a patient that they've seen for 8 straight appointments and now you're stepping in. You're that transfer orthodontist that's only seeing them for 1 visit before they go back to Kentucky or wherever else. And so you're going to call that orthodontist and go, hey, Joe, what would you do here? And they're going to tell you and you go, okay, I'll do it. That's kind of what you are in that scenario where you're not like, say, every other visit. So we actually don't even have to worry about that because we are so very consistent in how we do treatment. I think that's the key. Yeah. The key is really even consistent in bracket placement, heights, you know, even minor nuances. But I'll tell you another tip that we did on the clinical without taking too long. We actually went through periods of time where we focused on a couple of specific things. So initial bondings. So whether I did the bonding or Mike did the bonding, the other person would go over to say hi to the patient and look at the brackets. And then we would make notes. He'd make notes on mine. I think you're going to have to repo the lower right 4, and we'd note it. And then, 8 months later at the pan and repo, I go, aha, didn't have to reposition that. And then we went on to pan and repos, and we would do, it's almost like a double blind. Each of us would go look at the ICAT and write down what we would repo. And we found that he would repo probably double the amount of brackets I would. Why is that? Well, I'm more comfortable bending wires as needed because I've got 20 years of experience. Right. So then we decided the next step was for a month we were going to talk about my experience of bending wires. So we spent a lot of time mutually with patients looking at what each of us did, not to prove better or worse, but to maintain consistency. And that's been so now we really think alike after 4 years. So it's been a huge success, but it's a lot of work.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you have the right mindset, and you've really fostered that relationship. As does Mike. As does Mike, yeah. So now that you are our partner, welcome, I guess, But how have things changed for you now that you're no longer the associate?
Well, I think he kind of hit on it earlier when you talk about it's more than just moving teeth. So I think when you're an associate, you show up, you would invest 100%, you are working hard and honing your clinical skills, and there's so much more to the office that make it run. And so once you sign that check and have ownership of this practice, I really took a deep dive into the systems and the job descriptions and the HR. And it's a lot. And it took me a while. I'm still even learning some of the systems that have been in place for a long time and ways to improve them. But it's certainly a totally a different mindset than when you are an associate, because when it's your baby, when it's something that you have ownership in and your name is on the door, it's a much heavier weight on your shoulders. So you pay close attention to all of the details. Yeah,
sure. Well, if it comes to HR, give that to someone else. That should be that should be Sean's duty. So, well, guys, that's basically it. Do you have any parting words for anyone out there considering associateship. We've done a pretty good job summarizing it.
I think we've killed it.
I think so. Way to go.
I think you did kill it. Nice high five. Well, that's actually will be like right on time. So
Finally.
Let's be on time.
There you go. We'll be on time.
yeah,
There you
exactly.
go.
So
That's efficiency for you.
that is efficiency, and we'll get to more F-bombs and efficiency tomorrow. Candice, Koz, thank you. It was really great stuff. Our next segment is for the ortho nerds out there. If you've been thinking, are we ever going to talk clinical orthodontics? Well, we are about to. We're going to do hybrid orthodontics and digital workflows with Dr. Shane Langley, Lisa Alvetro, and Bryan Lockhart. But first, we have a commercial break from 3M on digital bonding, and then also one from a digital marketing agency that you may have heard of, Neon Canvas. And so we'll see you back in just a little bit. Thank you. Great job.
Since I started with Neon Canvas, I have more than doubled my production and collections. Up until then, I was not doing any advertising. I was doing traditional word of mouth, print magazines, and taking dentists to lunch. So I would have expect, as soon as you tap into the social media market and the Google AdWord market, I would expect some type of an increase. But I didn't expect to double. And not only that, it's freed up my time from not taking people to lunch. It narrows down. I mean, magazine advertisements are incredibly expensive. And it's very hard to tell if they even work. Now, we actually still give money to all the football teams and the cheerleaders and the band and all the local schools and things like that. But we just do it because they're our patients and they're asking it for us. We don't do it with any type of return of investment. We don't look at them now and be like, well, we should do this one and we're not going to do these over here. And we used to tell the patients, well, we have a budget for this and, we've already reached that budget. At this point, our cash flow is such, we just start handing out cash to these things. And because it's worth, used to, you had to make a conscious decision on a $150 ad when you had 10 of them laying on the table, and now you just write them the checks to get them off the table. So it's totally changed our world upside down. We ended up just doing a huge addition. We now run 10 chairs. I just doubled my clinic size. And I'll have to say, during this whole COVID thing, one of the first questions I called up and said to Joseph was, hey, what do we do? Because the traditional orthodontic mindset is let's pull back. And they said, hey, let's quit our advertising dollars and everything else. Now, Joseph has a very good idea of where I want to go. And he was like, well, I think we should do more. And I was like, that's exactly what I think. And so we did more. And when we came back, we have set records. We went back to work June 1st. And so we've been back to work for June, July, and August. We've set records all 3 of those months.
Hello, and welcome back to the trophy room. I think I should have a different name for it every time. The study, I guess. Man, if you're hoping for some technical, clinically geared, who wrote this crap? I wrote this crap. Technical, clinically geared orthodontic discussions tonight. If that applies to you, well then look no further, as I'm now joined by Dr. Shane Langley, Dr. Lisa Alvetro and Dr. Bryan Lockhart. You know, we sort of randomly picked these spots and they were perfect. How did we manage to do that? So we're going to discuss hybrid orthodontics, a term you may not be familiar with, although you're smart people out there, I'm sure you are. And then also digital workflows, which is a huge conversation piece in the developing landscape of orthodontics. Okay, so if anyone's unfamiliar with what we mean by hybrid orthodontics, some people call it combination treatment or therapy. Shane, can you break down for us what hybrid orthodontics is?
Sure, it's an overarching term, but for me it means anytime you use a combination of aligners along with braces, along with any other form of treatment. And oftentimes in our office we'll use it in tandem with braces first. Like I'll start with someone who might be an adolescent and they have high laterals that need to be extruded. So I'll just put braces on for like 3 months. I'm like, if you can just give me braces for 3 months, then I'll do the rest with aligners and stuff like that. Or it may be some different variation depending on the clinical preferences, but anytime you use brackets and aligners together, either before, after, or in the midst of, would be considered, in my opinion, hybrid orthodontics.
I think I have a photo, I don't know if they're showing it or not, but Brian sent a little photo of kind of like, I think your standard hybrid, treatment where it's, I think, an aligner at the top and then braces at the bottom. Not a great brusher, this one, A little calculus around the braces, that's okay. I don't know if anyone's seeing it or not, hopefully you are. But maybe that's for cosmetic purposes, or maybe you had some need for braces on the bottom. I guess real quickly, because I know that both of you guys do this sort of thing, and I don't think this is like cutting edge anymore. I know a lot of people that finish in aligners because they like, getting little rotations out on the lower with aligners, let's say. I've had patients that have had an impacted tooth and like, I don't really want to do it up with an aligner, like I just don't. So like, give me 6 months in clear on the lower. I'll do like, Clarity Advanced, and then we'll go into our aligners, So we've done all that kind of stuff. What are some other examples of when you guys do hybrid?
I think I use hybrid particularly when we want speed. And I can show someone a setup and say, okay, the top is going to be done in maybe 10, 12 aligners. The bottom, you're looking 30, 40. How many aligners do you have in you? And you're like, I can't do that.
How many aligners do you have in you?
That's a good one. That's it.
And they're like, okay, no. I'm like, well, if we put brackets on the bottom, at least even start that way, we can get it to catch up. So a lot of times for me, it's speed, and it's the number of aligners if I can reduce it. Because I think a lot of people have a limited number that they can cooperate with.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm glad you mentioned that because I'm not hosting this.
You're good.
But I noticed aligners burn out.
Oh, yeah.
Way more than I noticed braces burn out. Like they're done. They're done with it. So speed's critical.
There's probably something nice about having like the two things. It's almost like, a two-act play or something, like we're going to start here and we'll finish here. I mean, actually, it's probably pretty brilliant, actually. It sort of reminds me of like the sagittal first concept where you sort of, let's get the class 2 corrected and then we'll go into the braces. I think like that's a form of hybrid, treatment too. And you even mentioned TADS. Sure. Are there any other ways that hybrid kind of works in your practice?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty similar to what they said. The way I look at it, I tend to not want to combine two different things because there is some coordination that has to go on there. But at the same time, you have to look out for the patient and what's best for them. And so usually what I'll do is, and then this patient that was on the example, if it was shown, she wanted aligners, but she had a molar that we needed to upright and slightly bring forward. And in my hands, that's not going to be a successful aligner case. So I kind of meet the patients in the middle and say, okay, I'll tell you what, you really want aligners. We can handle everything in the upper, but I need to put braces on the lower arch. So it's more of a compromise, so to speak. But I like to keep it, whatever we're going is what we're going to go with, because my mindset and how I set it up. Because I've done a couple of these and it's like, okay, well, we need a refinement for the upper, but then we're doing an adjustment on the bottom and it was coded as an adjustment, so we didn't have the aligners ready, that kind of coordination. And it can be worked out, but I just like to keep it simple, but whatever modality is going to treat the situation the best is what I'll do. And so if that means kind of doing the combo hybrid thing, I'll do it, but I'm not looking to do that on the onset, though.
Yeah.
And you alluded to my use in TADS earlier. So I think it's important not to be a one-trick pony as an orthodontist to use that phrase, but to be able to think outside of the box in the sense of, if I want to use a TAD for posterior arch intrusion, like if I have excessive gingival display in the posterior and I want to really intrude that posterior more than aligners will give me, then I'll toss buccal segment braces on up to the first bicuspid and TADs between the 6 and 7 or 5 and 6 and intrude while I'm doing aligners. So being done in tandem is really nice, but with the use of Clarity Advanced brackets and then Clarity aligners together, you get the beautiful aesthetics at the same time as you don't compromise your treatment, and you just got to think outside of the box.
Yeah, I like that. I don't like to think outside of that. I like to build my own box and think inside of it. I also have I start to get like the shivers of concern over the overhead that goes up when I'm like, yeah, I'll do some braces and I'll do some aligners. So there's some of those kind of considerations. I think that as you have like companies like a 3M that now has like digital bonding. They also have aligner systems. That ecosystem makes sense to do it. I know some people are doing in-house, and there's ways to make this kind of stuff work. I also worry about just the workflow of it, which we'll kind of get to. How do you manage all that and keep all that straight? I love just like the simplicity of braces and knowing that I can make that system work. And thankfully in Memphis, people love braces, so like we're doing everybody wants braces. Like I have people all the time like, I'm not going to do aligners. Like, okay, we'll do braces. I have no qualms with braces. But there are some cases, it turns out, where I'm like, man, I'd really like to do aligners for your open bite. They're like, no, I want braces. It's like, okay, you're going to wear into your open bite elastics? Nope. All right, great. So this is going to
put a tat in you and you close the open bite?
See, I hate tats too. See, that's outside of the box, Shane.
That's true. One thing too, Kyle, when you mentioned about your overhead and the thing is too, if you're doing something and say you're going to do clarity aligners on the top and you can do an indirect bond setup on the bottom, your biggest expense is time.
Right.
So if you can get done quicker,
sure,
you can save it.
Yeah, no, I like that.
Yeah.
It's also probably better for the patient, but
it's hard to change though.
Yeah, I got to pay for this house.
You're right, overhead's a real concern.
Yeah, look at overhead.
I need to look at overhead for a few years. Trust me. I'm just kidding.
I mean, the wood on these walls just speak to me right now.
It's a rich mahogany. It is. So Lisa and Shane, you both speak for 3M.
Yes.
I technically speak for 3M too, although I don't get to talk about like clinical stuff. Maybe one day. I use a lot of their products. Could you tell me a little bit about the 3M Oral Care Portal? I think that with time, that's kind of the biggest conversation is the workflow of these digital systems. Because it's one thing to say, yeah, I could use these things together, but you got to have something that like makes it one like ecosystem or environment. Because I tried to do 3D printing like really early on, and we're not going to talk about 3D printing. I'm sorry, Lisa. She loves it. I know, maybe a little bit. But like I had like 3 programs that I was trying to. Well, let's talk about it here. Well, I had a question. Who cares? But I had like 3 different systems to like produce this little. I think it was a nightmare, And I probably got in a little too early because I'm an inside the box thinker, not an outside the box thinker. But the 3M Oral Care Portal. Now they've got the ability to do digital bonding, do clear aligners. Are you using that for hybrid therapy, and how is that working? Does it make it easier?
It does, and I think one thing that's nice about the portal, and I think people miss out on, is the ability to view it chairside, because since it's cloud-based, each of my staff members have their own way to get into the portal. So, even obviously designing treatment, there's steps that people can do and upload records for me. Then I get to a point where I'm looking at, approving the setup. But even like throughout treatment, my staff will have it pulled up. They can look and see, do you look like what you're supposed to, or do we maybe need to do a scan so that we can do a progress overlay and see where things are at. So I think the portal is easy to use, but the accessibility, and I think where people miss out is maybe they don't train their staff enough to be part of that process. And then even when you're doing that, the patients can see too, so they're excited about their progress. So I think there's some real advantages to that portal.
Progress overlay. Couple companies offer that kind of a thing. I don't ever use it. Are you using progress scans, overlay scans? If you're not, it's okay. Neither am I.
Yeah, I don't.
Do you?
I don't, and I'll be honest. A lot of
Well,
it's
if you
color
don't, I
driven.
don't want to hear about it.
I just can't. I don't see colors.
Oh, you're colorblind.
Yeah, even if it's white and blue. I'm
Yeah,
like, I don't
he
know.
didn't know what
I
color
forgot
the other
about
room
that.
was. He thought it was red.
Well,
and
he
it
said
was
the green room. I'm like, you should
he
have
thought
been green. It wasn't green.
Thought it was
I'm
purple.
kidding. No.
You're living in a color-driven world. I'm so sorry that.
That's okay.
Wow,
I'll be all right.
I keep
Yeah.
forgetting that.
Big time
And you're so
colorblind.
put together.
color?
Yeah, occlusal maps on an aligner case. Man,
I
I don't
never
know what is
thought
that.
about
What's
that.
hidden heavy, what's not. Just
These
tell
shades
me.
of gray are
You're
not like it.
discriminating
I'm
against.
thank
You got to
you,
work
Lisa.
on that.
You know what? We need to figure out how to make.
You got to come up with some software for that.
Shades of
I
gray.
never thought about
Yeah.
that. It should be more like Braille.
It should be shades of
My
gray. I
mind
can do that.
is blown right now. Well, tell me how it works for you. Like, how are
You know,
you using it?
we use it in the oral care portal where they overlay it, and then we'll do it some for our in-house too, because we're still trying to learn.
Sure.
I wish I knew more about aligners and the mechanics of it, but I mean, I was trained a long time ago.
Yeah.
So,
I think
a
it's
lot of
admirable
them
that you're taking the time to do those scans, to look at that stuff.
I don't do the scan. My staff
Well, I
does the
know, but-
scan. I just say,
She's ordering
can
the
you
scan,
scan?
I'm ordering the scan. That's fine. I just think that's great.
It's no different than like a progress band. We all do progress bands.
You're right. It's just
So you
forethought.
could even put it into your chart.
It's
Pops
forethought.
up progress scan.
That's actually Totally true. A pan takes a while. It takes at least, conservatively, to get them out of the chair, get the pan set up. They had to wait on the pan 5, 6, 7 minutes.
More than a scan does, yeah.
Yeah, more than a scan. Interesting.
It's just retraining your brain.
Well, and it takes a little while. It's a stubborn little thing.
Things inside the box.
Little muscle.
Inside the box.
Okay, this is going well. I like this.
I
Yes,
love
it's
it.
good. We're going to talk about 3D. If we have time, we're talking about 3D printing. I'm just throwing it out there. All right, Bryan, I want to come to you. You and I mean this sincerely. I don't know that I really fully recognize this. You're a pro when it comes to digital systems. You have your own in-house aligner brand. Let me gush just a second, if you allow me. It's
Please don't stop.
It's Dual Line. You have a patent on Lock-On, which is a device used to facilitate orthodontic surgery on aligner patients. Bravo. I didn't want to do that impacted tooth, and you're like doing surgeries with aligners. Good for you.
Awesome.
And you have a patent pending on, is it SAS Track?
Cast track.
Cast Track, my
Yes.
bad. See, I should have gone with the hard. All right, Cast Track, and that's a software used to track and organize in-house aligner patients as well as other digital modalities.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's amazing. All right.
Sweet.
So tell me, we talk about digital workflows, and that brings in a whole nother element of keeping things right and organized, because you're only as good as the level to which it's organized, right? How do you keep all this organized?
Yeah. So there's a couple of things. The biggest thing, like you said, once you kind of transform into this digital system, and you really kind of dive deep, there's a lot of moving parts to keep up with. And one of the biggest fears for me was losing control and having situations where patients are showing up, things are not ready, and it's not where it's supposed to be. So the first thing that I did was say, I need to figure out a way to make sure that that doesn't happen. And so the biggest things that I learned is, one, you have to write out all of the protocols. So step by step, what's supposed to be done, how it's supposed to be done, so everyone knows what's expected from them. The other thing is assign different tasks to different team members instead of having one member who's responsible for everything, because if they're out, if they get sick, if they leave, then you have this whole mess that you're just trying to gather and try to figure out. So assign different tasks to different team members. The other thing about doing that is that person is now held accountable for what happens. And so they can have other team members help them out, but at the end of the day, if something goes wrong with that particular section, I'm coming to them for the answers. And the third part of that is reports. We did scans today. Okay, did you submit them? And these are things that it seems like a lot, but it's not, especially when it's done daily. If you let things kind of stack up, it's almost like clean checks back when I used to do those. If you let them stack up, and you go through it, your mind just starts spinning. You just accept everything. But if you have a system where you're kind of knocking them out as they come and does it in little pieces, it makes it so much more manageable. So having clear objectives, assigning people specific tasks, and having daily reports to keep up with everything. And then not to get too salesy or whatnot, because that's not what this is about, but that's how Cast Track came about. And it's in beta. I have a few docs kind of testing it now. But especially for in-house aligners, when you really get into it, you're doing a lot of cases, you have to have some way to manage it all. And so that's what it was for, but it can also track appliances that you are sending out, coming back. If you do any other kind of digital technology, it's a way, because it's so customizable to set everything up, that it'll keep and track everything for you so that you can stay on top of everything. And this whole digital world doesn't turn into something that's too much to handle.
What does that stand for? Cast Track.
So it's capital C, capital A, capital S, track. So it's Clear Aligner System Track.
But
I don't want to
also
put tracking,
but it'll do any
but it'll
lab
do it
work.
right. So it's like one of those things where you have a main reason or main thing is for, and then it's like that white label use that you can use it for as well. But the main thing is to track in-house aligners.
Was your dad a Baptist minister?
It was
Because you
not.
had 3 points to everything. There's a lock.
I didn't know that. And I was a really good
that.
3-point shooter too. So.
There you go. 3 points. Boom.
We gotta get you. He actually. Well, I saw your trading card, or maybe it was just a photo. We gotta get you to play some basketball. We got a goal out there.
Listen, let's do it.
This was like our third Baptist reference.
I know. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
It wasn't me the whole time. It was only me this time. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, good. So sorry to any Baptists out there. You seem like great people. Okay. So You know what? We've got some time. Let's get squirrely with it. Let's talk 3D printing. What are you using 3D printing for?
Everything. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, everything. No, so currently we use 3D printing in our office for all of our Essex retainers and all of our in-house aligners, as well as our splints. But we don't use a 3D printed splint. We still make it analog off of, we make an impression of the 3D printed model. It's backwards, but
What do you have against alginate?
it's just extra steps. Extra steps. Yeah.
What's bad about it?
No, I mean.
I'm just talking to
It's
three
bad.
like super digital people. What, did it ever hurt someone?
No.
It's just too technique sensitive.
Yeah, okay.
There's bad impressions and there are good impressions.
Well, that's true.
I agree. And so, and to kind of piggyback on that.
I'm just giving y'all softballs to
No, I
make
love it.
Yeah, no,
Awesome.
but to piggyback off of that, I mean, that is one of the biggest reasons that I decided to move into that arena is consistency. You know, you have some assistants that are really good with impressions and some that are terrible.
Even
you
if they've been there 20 years.
Yeah, and then you have some that, okay, the impression was good, but then the port was horrible.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so, and then you
Bubbles
don't know that
everywhere.
until you separate, and then you're trying to patch this up. Well, with scanning, it's really kind of hard to mess it up. As long as you see the picture, the teeth on the screen, you're good to go. And then the retainer, the model, the printer does it all. And then you can hand it to the patient. So if they need to redo, there's no getting them back, taking a whole nother impression, pouring it up, getting them back, and that's taking a team member out of the office or the clinic to do it, where they just bring the model in. 5 minutes later, they have the retainer because all we have to do is suck it down. And then financially, which is not a reason to do everything that you do, but at that point, there's really no time associated with it. All you have is that $2 plastic or whatever you use to suck it down, and you give it back. And so there's profit there as well, even though that's not the biggest driver, but it's the consistency that just did it for me. And so even if you don't even do aligners, just getting into 3D printers just for that alone, I think would make it worth it.
Well, I'm sorry, I just disagree. No, I'm just kidding.
We do the same thing.
That's a fair
Plus, you're missing out on all the fun.
Is it fun? Because I did it. I had one like 4 years ago. Well, I mean, I'm sure that's true. I was doing it wrong. Could apply to so many things.
It's changed so
Oh, I know
much.
it's
And
changed.
you can
Yeah.
use it for so many things.
Well,
You
maybe
obviously
you'll-
do models, in-house aligners.
Yeah.
You can print indirect bond trays. You can print splints. You can
print chess pieces.
You can print. Printing jewelry pieces. You can print brackets.
I know it's
You
amazing.
can print. We print temporary crowns,
No,
semi-permanent
the
crowns.
We printed masks during the COVID
Yeah, see,
shutdown,
look.
like printed
Yeah, no, I
mass
know.
production of
All this
masks.
fun
Yeah.
stuff.
Wait, what are you
You and
printing
your
crowns for? What do you do?
People that have peg laterals.
Oh, that's pretty
So
cool.
you can print them, we print them, we'll scan them, print them, put it on, then I'll rescan for like their aligners. Or
I feel like
before
I
they're
wish
set up.
Lisa were my orthodontist. I feel like if any of my patients are watching out there, she's in like Ohio or something.
yeah.
You're not gonna want to go see her. Okay, so we got 2 questions left. This has been fun, huh?
I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, this is good. I like this.
We
This
could do
this
this
feels
all day,
good. We could do
couldn't
this all day.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, we only have 8 minutes, but we could do it all day. All right, so let's end with this. I want to ask Lisa and Shane a little bit about 3M Clarity aligners. I'm sure we have practices out there that use all different types of plastic. I did an aligner podcast. What did I have? 3M, Invisalign, and ULab.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do another one in the fall. Spoiler alert, like anyone's keeping up the fall. And I'll probably have on maybe some sort of an in-house solution. With Archform, a lot of people are using that. Probably have on Spark. And then I don't know, maybe another one. We'll see. But you guys use 3M Clarity aligners. I think it's helpful to understand what all's out there. So if you don't use 3M Clarity aligners, maybe you'll learn something. So tell me about your experience with that, about having different options, which I think is awesome, just flat out, like whether it's in-house or it's Spark or whatever. It's great to have other options. I think that's good for us. But what's your experience been like with those?
Well, the thing is, we like in our in-house system, but it's not for everybody. Not everyone's going to want to print. So you need outsource options, and for bigger cases, we'll outsource.
Yeah.
One of the things that's coming new on the horizon is you'll have material choices within your Clarity aligners, where
Yeah.
there's a flexible material and then a forced material.
Yep.
And we found it, we were doing some of the initial testing on it, that particularly in your crowded cases, that the hard part is getting that first initial aligner to fit. Maybe you have to block out a lot if you're always using one material. So, for us, the ability with crowded cases, you start with a flexible material and then change to a material that's stiffer is helpful. And so there's a lot of options that are going to be existing for aligner design, which is
I wanna talk
really
about that.
seriously cool.
So I think that is like one of the most crazy things. We've had aligners for 20 years, and certainly in Invisalign, the only aligner system we had for a long time, it had a more rigid plastic made from a single sheet, and then now they have like a 3-layer plastic, which is more flexible. But that's it. You know, so like, you know, that flexible plastic is great for initial loading and you can get it in and out and it's great. But then you get to some more difficult movements and it seems like in my hands it struggles with certain more difficult movements. So to have like variety of choice with the types of plastic is like so obvious. And other people have figured this out. There's other systems that offer that.
In-house does that too.
And in-house, obviously, you've got like 20 different types
You
of
can choose
plastic.
whatever you want at any moment.
But can you imagine if we were doing braces and you had one wire?
Stainless
Like
steel.
it's kind of like ridiculous.
Yeah,
So-
no, in my mindset on the two, like 3M's coming out with a two tray system, force and flex. I'm of the mindset that's more in line with kind of old school mechanics, segmental mechanics, where you would start with a heavy
would
arch
like
wire
that.
intrusion arch.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, in your deep bite cases especially, when you start to align your lower incisors too soon, you hit premature anterior contact. And then you get a posterior open bite and you have these problems. So you need to start with intrusion truly first before you start to align so you don't have these premature anterior contacts. And that's suited well with like a heavy force type material. And then once you clear that, then you come in with something that's lighter and get those alignment issues all taken care of. That's really nice. So the flexibility, depending on your philosophy, everybody's philosophies will be different. You may be a force to flex type philosophy, maybe a flex to force type philosophy. But the beauty is the ability to choose and to have that ability to change it when you want to and on case-by-case basis.
So when you do in-house, are you doing like a more flexible plastic first or a more rigid plastic first?
Yeah, so I usually start more flexible. So I'm doing flex. I am trying out glacier material now because it's a little mix between flexible and kind of sturdy. So I usually always start out, because it's a comfort thing. If you get it in and it doesn't fit, it's not comfortable, patients are not going to wear it.
That's what I was worried about with Shane.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Shane doesn't care about that because he's like
So they'll get over it, tough
They'll
it
get
out.
achieving the
They
best
listen
result.
to Shane.
Yeah, so I'll start that way, and then
Clinical
usually
excellence.
in the refinements I'll use a stiffer material because the movements are not as big or great, and so that stiffer material will finish it off and it'll still fit.
To me, I think in terms of wire sequence and in that way that you start
Yeah.
with it like a light wire.
Yeah.
But
And I want to change the
otherwise.
mindset of the wire sequence thing. I think we do that because NITAC goes into crowded teeth easily.
Yeah.
But if you have the ability to just
So does
intrude
plastic.
to begin with, plastic does too. That's why I like the heavy one
So
first.
you're focused on intruding, but they got this jacked tooth, and they're like, when are you going to deal with this? And you're like,
Tray 7.
They'll figure it out.
Tray 7, that's not, you know. Do you want to bite on your back teeth
Make
or
them
not?
earn it.
Do you want to bite on your back teeth or do you not want to bite on your back teeth? You tell me. You want to hit in the front only? I don't
People
know.
only care
I'm gonna ask the director for 10 more minutes with this crew. All right, we have a question. Thankfully, Cameron Walker, great guy. Can you scan, print, and seat clear retainers in one visit? How long does it take?
So the answer is yes. That's what we do. It can be, I mean, it depends on the setup you have. I use an Envision Tech Vita and an Envision 1 as my printers, and it usually takes about 20 minutes to print the model. But to try to turn that around right away is a bit much. So what we do is we take the braces off in the morning, take the scan, do all the final pictures, x-rays, and then over lunch, we make the retainer. They come back for a quick pop-in 10-minute appointment. I know a lot of people will see people next week, and I'm just not that ballsy. I don't know if we can say that. But
It's PG.
yeah, okay. I'm too scared. Like we spend all this time to get this great finish, and just to fumble it away at the end, it's just too risky for me. So I'd like to give it the same day. So that's a tricky question, so to speak, because you can have it done in 30 minutes.
Right.
But it's not worth the hassle. We just do everything, make it over lunch, have a quick seat.
Well, even with the glory that is alginate, you know, they have to come back later in the day.
Yeah.
You know,
I'd
as
I'd
great
say
as it is.
For me,
that's-
the minimum time is an hour. So
Yeah.
it's not one visit. It would be like go sit in your car for an hour and wait, or go somewhere and come back.
it's just
But-
not super efficient.
Yeah,
Or
no.
we scan before we take the brackets off.
Right.
We digitally remove them.
Yeah. What
then just
software
seat it.
do you use for that?
There's a couple different ways you can do it. You can use 3Shape, or you can even use Mesh Mixer. Any program that will let you take off an artifact.
Sure. Okay.
There's a little bit of an art form to it. It takes a little bit of
I'm
practice.
sure there is, and Lisa's just killing it.
Yeah, I
So
will never know about it.
yeah, no, I will know about it. I don't live in a cave. I just, you know, we're doing things pretty. Come by the practice. I'll
No,
show you.
I'm just saying how you said it. Like I'm sure it exists.
All right.
See, here's the
I-
thing.
oh.
I'm afraid if I take people's braces off and don't put a retainer in immediately, they're not going to wear
I'm
them.
the same.
Oh, I
It's
agree.
like, here's a
Yeah.
trade. I'll trade you those for this.
Yeah, no, we like to get them to it that same day.
Yeah.
All right, real quick question. One of the most common questions I get when this topic comes up, when we talk about digital systems and aligners and all this kind of stuff is, where do I learn more about it? In fairness, the residency programs are still slow to catch up with this. I did 4 aligner cases, and I was thankful to do 4 aligner cases in residency, but some of us have done 0. And so what are some of the options? I know, Shane, I'm going to give you another plug. I plugged your beard balm. Now I'm plugging your course. You have a course coming up. Tell me more.
Didn't know I could talk about it. Yeah, no, so 3M's actually
I hope we can.
It's not in the bag now.
Whoops!
3M's putting together some curriculum on aligner therapy and different types of cases, setups, and going through the treatment mindset, what you're thinking on the treatment planning side, when you're designing that case, how it looks in the end, and the staging of it all.
Okay.
For open bites, deep bites, transverse issues, class 2s, all these kinds of things. So we're going through each type of case and laying it out exactly how we would lay it out and why.
Yeah,
And
cool.
kind of explaining what the rationale is behind the treatment plan.
I like it. Jonathan Maas have their course.
Of course.
Any others?
I was just thinking, I dated myself. You said aligners didn't exist when I was in residency. Actually, nine-tie wires just
Sure.
came out. They had them locked because they were too dangerous, and you had to get you had to get special permission to
They
use a
had
nine-tie
them locked.
wire.
Locked up.
It's contraband.
So-
It's like it's an opiate or something
I'm
behind
sorry,
the back
I just had
counter.
to share that.
I love that.
Oh my gosh, am I old?
Any
But
courses?
Yeah, well, for me, I think when Invisalign had their first master's course pilot, I don't know what they're calling it now.
Yeah.
Barry Glazer, he was a part of that,
Yeah.
and I did it with him. I looked at all the Invisalign CE because the thing is, regardless of what you're using, the principles are the same. Now,
Right.
the mechanics of using their customized and their force, all that kind of stuff is going to be different. But things of how to intrude, do this first, make space before you rotate. Those kind of principles are the same regardless of whatever system you're using. So anything that will provide CE in terms of clear aligners will be beneficial, and then you'll just apply the certain things to whatever system you're using to go. But the mechanics and the principles are the same. So,
what is Barry Glazer's book?
I did read that book too.
He has a
That's
great
an
book.
excellent book.
Yeah,
I
I did.
Yeah.
I forgot.
Yeah.
I got it has the
Excellent.
teeth on it.
It's in my bedside table. I'll pull it out later.
Because I
so.
had on my digital integration team, we
It is
all
great.
read that book
Yeah.
together.
Yeah,
Really good
it's a
book.
great book.
Yeah.
Really simplifies it. Great
I thought,
pictures.
oh, I can
But
do this.
to plug it real quick,
Yeah,
so
Sure,
Dr.
sorry.
Mark Causey and myself
Yeah.
are kind of working on this together with 3M to try to formulate. It's called the Treatment Design Advanced Treatment Design course. Is that what it's be called?
Work on the name. This is a joke.
Advanced Treatment Design course.
Listen, the cameras are gonna be cutting. They're gonna be scrapping it.
Cast track. I said that wrong. Well, hold on, we gotta go. We're over
We're
time.
gonna be here forever.
We'll finish this conversation later. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this. Everyone's like, what is going on over there? He said ballsy.
We're going right.
No, we're going well. This was great. This topic is definitely not my area of expertise, as I proved. So it's been great to learn more about it from you experts. Thank you, Shane. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Brian. I really, really did enjoy this. Our final interview of the night is coming up, hallelujah, with Dr. Stuart Frost. You may have heard of him, on the topic of the artist orthodontist. But first,